All right, here's the scheme. Step 1, Chris at Conviction Gaming makes a list of specs and gives it to his Patreon. Step 2, a week later, we get that list. We buy a ton of those specs and make a video about it and show it early to our Patreon. Step 3, you get this video, and now all the cards are extremely high priced and we sell them for big profits. Step 4, profit.
That's right. We've teamed up with Chris to become the evil Three Musketeers. We are dirty, evil, scheming, rotten pumpers, and we're going to talk to you about some cards that maybe need to be on your radar.
We're going to bring you 5 specs, and we're going to look at 5 specs from the past and see how they've done.
Nothing on this channel is financial advice. It's all entertainment purposes. Nothing on this channel is financial advice ever in perpetuity of the channel. Nothing, nor is it made for kids. Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat. Hello and welcome to the day.
Thank you for spending your time with us.
I'm Jake.
I'm Joel. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. We have got 5 specs from Chris over at Conviction Gaming, who we love that content. Make sure you go check out Chris's Twitter for all of the most up-to-date information. We got 5 specs that were presented to both of our Patreons already. So if you want to get these videos, lists, content early, make sure you go check out our Patreon.
So you've made it through that super trolly intro that we had. We are going to be talking about cards that for one reason or another are going to be speculated on. They're currently being speculated on. A lot of these cards are low risk. They're less than $5. And so, yeah, it's just stuff that, you know, if you're kind of out of the loop like I am sometimes, there's so many different products, you might not have known about some of these interactions. Chris has really good, thorough analysis of why he thinks these cards are going to do well, which is why we made this video. So let's go ahead and start talking about Gwenna here, which is the first card, and this is the first 5, which means these are cards that Chris currently likes. And we're going to check in with 5 cards later. Make sure to stick around for that, where we're going to see how Chris did in the past.
3 mana for a 2/3 elf druid. We'll go through the card real fast. Tap it to add 2 mana in any combination of colors. You can only spend the mana on creature spells or activate abilities of creatures or creature cards. Then it says whenever you cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on Gwenna, Eyes of Gaea, and untap it, meaning you can use that mana again. Right now, Brothers War, which is what Gwenna is from, is at absolute peak supply. The foils and the extended versions of Bro cards are in greater supply than the average set because, and Jake, we opened one on the channel, people are trying to chase those serialized cards.
That's right. The serialized cards are really interesting. They play a part here. Gwenna's a really good card. You know, after you read it for 3 mana, you're getting a 2/3 that's a mana dork that has big upside as well. Yeah. So it's like it's very much a Timmy card. That was one of Chris's points about this card. It's going to be a card that not only becomes a threat but can also power out some big mana, some big boys.
Yep. And speaking of big boys, we already saw Zakama on the packaging of Commander Masters. That's all but confirmed. And what we fully have confirmed is that we're going to Ixalan later in the year. So when all the homies start grabbing the big dinosaurs and want to play big, ridiculous, stompy creature decks, you bet this card is going to have a spot in the 99? I would bet so. And so would Chris. Love that point on this, how we've got dinosaur set basically coming out soon. And so this one flying under the radar right now, non-foil and foil, $129, $1.50. It's not that much to spend on this card right now.
Also, it is an elf, which is a super relevant creature type. So Chris likes Gwenna at $1.50 or less because of Timmy's playing green, which we already mentioned. Mana dork that scales into a threat, which we already mentioned. It's a legend for legendary matters, so that's interesting and worth noting. It is a legendary creature.
Lots of legend matters stuff has come out over the past 2 or 3 months, and so you have to imagine that as they lean more into the legendary creature type, those kinds of decks are going to get more and more love, and you know, any kind of ramp is always good.
That's right. And then the foil extended Gwenna is at low supply. We like these at around $3.50 or less, regular foils and non-foils. He thinks the target is in $4 to $5 in 7 months or so. That's where he's at on this card. Extended foils 7 to 8 in just 3 to 4 months because of low supply. So the extended art foils, you know, there's something interesting to be said about these cards, because there's people that want to make retro foil decks. There's people that want to make extended art decks because of all these different variants that have come out. And so, yeah, he essentially likes Gwenna at $1.50 or less. Pick number 2, Staff of Titania, 2 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of forests you control. Whenever equipped creature attacks, create a 1/1 green forest dryad land creature token. It's affected by summoning sickness. Pretty sweet, and it just has an equip of 3. So in Forests Matters, this card is a house. One thing that is not in the analysis that comes to mind immediately is Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, which says each land is a forest in addition to its other types. It's something that really sticks out to me as being maybe something that long-term could affect this card.
Chris said he saw this one a lot at MagicCon Philadelphia, and every time he saw it, it just took over the table. That creating a 1/1 green forest dryad land creature token doesn't seem like a lot when you read it, but basically gaining an additional land every turn, if you look at it that way, that's an effect that everybody would run. That's an effect that everybody would love. And in my initial analysis of this, you can go back to the video where I called this as one of my favorite commander cards from the set. This one, I was like, it has to be in a mono green deck, but I'm not so sure. You just talked about the card that gives everything Urborg but forests. Well, Yavimaya.
Yeah, and you can get it with so many different cards that let you grab specific lands, whether it's an expedition map or anything like that.
Exactly. And so I think it does have a lot of potential. Low mana cost, not a terrible equip. It's not a great equip, but it's not terrible. Right now, the foil extendeds of this card are already over $10, but the non-foil extendeds haven't really followed that growth, and at time of the analysis, those were about $2, with the non-foil base copies, the non-extendeds, at about $3. So Chris has this one projected to go like $5 for extended non-foils, and maybe $5 for the base copy non-foils within the next 3 months. And this one, if it doesn't get reprinted, this is one that'll just kind of continue to grow because it's good. And so this is a potential 12-month plus hold if you just kind of judge your own risk tolerance for it popping up in another set or in a secret layer or in a pre-con deck. There's so many places that this could be printed, while at the same time, it's not just going to pop up in any old standard set. So sort of an interesting play to try and track the reprintability of this one.
If anybody is buying a card with the intention of selling it, you really do need to monitor the price of it at all times and make sure that you aren't just holding the card. Make sure that you do sell it into, you know, hype and FOMO, not financial advice. The Staff of Titania, I think it's a really cool card. I think it's strong. The fact that the equipped creature gets a massive, it just scales with the game. And then the fact that whenever it attacks, you are getting a creature, which we always talk about how much we love token generation, but you're getting a creature that's also a land. So it's helping you ramp as well. There's a lot going on with this card. And for, 2 mana total and a 3 equip, in big green, you're not worried about a 3 equip if it's going to make one of your creatures absolutely massive.
Pick number 3 this episode is Descent into Avernus. I'm pronouncing that wrong, Baldur's Gate fans, I think. Let me know in the comments. Let's check out the card first. 3 mana enchantment, because I know nobody looked at Baldur's Gate. Everybody skipped this set. 1 red, 2 other for this enchantment. Says, at the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 descent counters onto Descent into Avernus. Something. Then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of Descent counters on Descent. The base copy of this went from the non-foil base copy, went from a bulk card, a quarter, jumped up to like $2 just on the back of a few content creators popping off with this in some commander videos.
I can't stand content creators.
They suck. Right now, the extended non-foils of this are still like $1. So they haven't even followed that trend up yet. It's a really inexpensive card to play at only 3 mana. It's great ramp and damage for like Punisher or Flood type decks.
I love it. I love this card so much.
This
Dude,
is your alley. This is your kind of card.
And it kind of speaks so much to how much product that comes out, because I didn't even know about this card until tonight. And I hate to say that. I really do hate to be like, yeah, I didn't even know about this card. But it's a great card. It has treasure, which matters. It's in the right treasure colors, which matters as well.
Right.
So for the people that really like...
Well, some decks don't don't care. They're just like, I don't care if you get treasure. I just want treasure. It's doing more damage of all my Punisher stuff.
That's
and
right.
look, this... It's funny that I can't pronounce the name of this because the naming convention is tied to Baldur's Gate. So it's tough to reprint this. It's got to pop up in like a secret layer. Maybe that's the best place, the most obvious place for it to pop up. Or we got to go back to Baldur's Gate. And that didn't go great for Wizards the first time, and you know they love money.
Another thing that's sexy about this card is it gets better with Proliferate, right? You know, it's
absolutely.
Like, because
that's actually a really good point.
I mean, we just went into, Proliferate the Gathering with Phyrexia All Will Be One.
100%.
So, yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Last couple things about this one. Extended non-foils project to $3 within 6 months. Foils could go back to 6 to 8 in that time. Card Kingdom buy list has this at 90 cents already, and that is on US dollars.
For the extended non-foils.
Yeah,
that's very relevant.
Non-foils.
The extended non-foils are like $1. Chris projects them to be like $3 within 6 months. And Card Kingdom's already buy listing these for 90 cents and then turning them and selling them $1. So when Card Kingdom is showing that they think the price should be higher because they just want to acquire these, that should tell you where they think this card is headed.
Yeah, it's just treasure, man. Treasure is very strong. It's powerful, and this card is just generically good. Like you said, Punisher and that kind of thing. Being able to ramp. It's a card that's going to get the game. Like you can kind of build a whole deck around this card because it's just going to burn people down. It's going to ramp out all of your stuff. You know, it's a very good commander card. I like it a lot.
Pick 4 is not a traditional pick. There are a lot of different ways to engage with MTG on the financial side and to speculate on cards. Chris found this card in high quantities for sale on a specific website called Card Trader. They were selling these for under $1 when he found them, but in the United States, they sell for like $3 or $4. So this isn't so much a buy in the United States to flip it in the United States, you know, that kind of spec. It's just sort of a notification to you to like watch all sources for opportunities. By the time you see this opportunity is probably come and gone because Chris said with this website, Card Trader, they normally ship 6 to 8 weeks. And so the potential existed for this card to be purchased, 20, 30 copies under $1. Ship them 6 to 8 weeks, get them listed up. Even if it's gone down 50 cents or $1 in the meantime, you're making $1 plus per card. And so it's like a little arbitrage, modest gain, little opportunity there that Chris had found, but at this point is probably well out of stock over at Card Trader.
Yeah, the card interacts well with some new cards that came out, like Elish Norn. It's a strong card. It goes infinite with a lot of stuff. We've seen Felidar Guardian in the past. We know that it's a problematic
been on ban lists.
It's been on ban lists. So yeah, Felidar Guardian, I didn't really realize that these had ticked up. So again, Chris's stuff
Scarcity
for me is really it's interesting because there's cards that not only am I seeing for the first time tonight, just because there's just the sheer amount of new stuff that comes out. So easy to miss something. But yeah, we got an oldie here, an oldie popping up, Felidar Guardian.
From one specific seller at one ridiculously low price. Want to be clear about
right.
this one. Do not go buy 100 copies of Felidar.
At $3, please don't. All right, next up we have a card that is comparable to Endray's Forerunners, and it is a super, super cheap card. Generic 8 mana for a 7/5, Graaz Unstoppable Juggernaut.
Tentacles!
Legendary artifact creature, and Juggernauts you control attack each combat if able. Juggernauts you control can't be blocked by walls.
Don't care about those two.
Yeah, other creatures you control have base power toughness 5/3 and are Juggernauts in addition to their other creature types. So think tokens, think go wide. This Graaz, whether it's your general or whether it's in your 99, it is going to make all of your little creatures very big and very much a problem for your opponents. Bulk rare, currently being slept on. Keep in mind, this is Phyrexia, all will be one. It has step and complete versions. It has foil versions. There's an extended art version of this card. It is absolutely in peak supply right now because so much Phyrexia all will be one is being opened. So it's just completely printed into the ground right now. You're going to be able to find copies for as low as they can possibly exist. It's a legend. It has meme value too because it's a juggernaut. It's literally like the king shit juggernaut.
Yeah, this is sort of the definition of a penny stock here. This is the kind of card that Chris will see at a quarter, be able to draw good comp lines to a card like Enray's Forerunners, which was $1 for the longest time, and then it just got reprinted into the dirt. And now you've got this card at around a quarter. And so Chris is looking at this as a potential buy list play. So if you're not familiar with those, Card Kingdom, TCG Player, these websites, a lot of card sellers, they'll have a buy list. We want these cards and this is what we'll pay you for them. It's typically lower than market value, but they're a store and you can just sell them a ton of cards all at once, not worry about shipping, etc. That's the draw of buy listing. So Chris thinks with Graaz, this is a potential buy list opportunity. 25 cents per. Right now, when Chris is ordering cards off TCG Player, he was telling us he's just sort of throwing these in his cart as filler. Get, above the line X so that we get free shipping on this order. And just sort of accumulating these in mass so that eventually you've accumulated like 100 copies for like $20. And then in a year, you can just buy list them all for twice that, 3 times that. I don't know. And you get a little modest return on sitting on your tentacled beetle-looking juggernauts.
Now, here's the thing and why the buy list is attractive, right? Is you get to make some money because if you get in at a low enough price, and now this is where people are going to be like these dirty, evil pumpers. If you get in at a low enough price, 25 cents, then if you buy list this card away for $1, then you're netting a 75-cent profit on it. Now, the buy list is typically going to be about, like sometimes 60%, or if it's a really good buy list price, it could be as high as like 70% of the market price of the card. It gets you paid and it allows whoever is buying the card a little bit of margin so that they can make some money selling it. Now, a lot of you are going to be like, now this is what's wrong with MTGs when people go out and they buy 100 copies of a card that they'll never need 100 copies for. And yeah, you can scream and cry about that, but this is just how this works. The reason that this list exists, because I'm not even going out buying a bunch of copies of these cards. The reason this list exists is because you are able to watch and see what people are speculating on, watch and see maybe there's like, you're just out of the loop. That's kind of how I am, about this series. This is just the kind of thing where I can watch this and be like, oh, that's something that people are buying. I might want to buy a single copy of this card just so I don't miss the boat. That way I can have it. I would rather buy something at 25 cents than have it go to like $2 or $3 and I'm like, oh, why didn't I just buy that when it was a quarter?
Exactly. And that's I've been transparent on the channel about how I engage with the finance side. Even though we do cover a lot of finance MTG content, I get 1 or 2 copies for my collection and I play them. That's how I engage. And so you have my personal guarantee. Can't speak for all the other dirty pumpers, but this dirty pumper here will be buying 1 or 2 copies of all of these cards for my personal collection to potentially never ever be sold.
Yeah, I love to hunt all-time lows and I love to avoid all-time highs.
For the back half of the episodes in this series, we want to take a look back very quickly at 5 cards that Chris has called out before and see what they're doing now. We're going to try and not bias these towards only success so you can see what the successes are, but what failures look like as well. We'll start off with Turalf, God of Fury. Chris said that he called this one out on a Patreon exclusive on January 20th, the day that Sulfum was spoiled in Phyrexia All Will Be One. Sulfum is one of those damage boosters that Red often gets. The foils were $2 on TCG Direct at the time and now sell for closer to about $3.50. So that's in just over a month. It's already gone up $1.50. And this is a card from Call Time, so it's been a little while on this one. It did have a really brief spike up way big, and then it sort of came back down when a lot of people's cards started getting listed. They were like, oh my god, my Turalfs, they've gone up. Let's post these on the internets. Sulfum hasn't really caught on with the community a lot. but one has only been out for a couple of weeks, and we got Elish and Atraxa. That's where everybody's focus is. It seems like Card Kingdom might sort of agree on Turalf because $1.80 is the price on their buy list right now for pack non-foils. Chris is still pretty confident about the trajectory of Turalf, and he still plans to hold it until about that $5 mark.
So the non-foil of this card started at $2, and now the non-foil is closer to $3.50. So this has ticked up a little bit since it was brought up. One thing to keep in mind, it's a mythic. Even though mythics have been printed into the ground recently, it is a mythic, and that is going to give it a little bit more price support. Stop it from bottoming out. Machine God's Effigy called out in the Conviction Gaming Patreon on January 13th as a potential long-term spec. Pick from Brothers War Commander Precons. Okay, so keep in mind this is just in the Commander Precon. When I first drew attention to it, the retro frame was $1 and the extended arts were 50 cents to 75 cents on TCG Direct. We've already seen some movement north of $1.50 for the retro frame, and the extended art is now $1 on Direct. This should continue to increase over time given the uniqueness of the card and just how great it is as a combo engine. Yeah. The rulings and interaction of Machine God's Effigy make it a more complex card to absorb for the community, so time will be its best ally. I'm holding for a potential 4 to 5 upside later this year. So pretty cheap card here. Joel just broke it down for me because I was like, how is this good? And
yeah, it's funny that in Chris's write-up, he talks about how this one hasn't really broken out big because it is sort of a tough card to parse. But if it's entering with a great ETB that some creature on the battlefield has, or entering and copying some creature with some insane activated ability, it's not a creature. You can activate that ability immediately as this card has copied and come into the battlefield, if I'm reading this correctly. This is just one of those that's got a ton of upside and combo-y potential just because of the shenanigans because of how it's designed, really.
Yeah, and at the bare minimum, it's a 4-cost mana rock that floats for blue. That's not that great, but if there's no target on the battlefield, and that's the bare minimum of what you can do with the card, it's just like a really unique card with like a mana rock tacked onto it. So it's like if you do have some big splashy activated ability, that might be the card to copy with Machine God's Effigy.
Next, we'll talk about Blast Furnace Hellkite. This one was a crazy one earlier in the year because I had gotten these precons and I was like, man, this card seems so much more powerful than people are talking about. I think they're seeing that it's 9 mana to play and going, meh, never mind, 9 mana dragon, I'm good. Not seeing that number one's got artifact offering, so you can reduce the cost. It comes with flying and double strike. Yeah, it's a fun dragon, but creatures attacking your opponents have double strike. You know what that doesn't say? You control. It says creatures attacking your opponents have double strike. This is giving double strike to all of your opponent's stuff as long as it's not attacking you.
Group hug.
Plus, it's got artifact offering, which doesn't just reduce its cost, Jake, but lets you play it as though it had flash. This card is just all in fantastic, and it's crazy that this one was so low for so long. Blast Furnace Hellkite was called out in one of Chris's tweets on January 7th, and at the time the card could be found for about $1 in the retro frame and under $1 for the extended art version. His tweet blew up, so did the card's price. It's now available for $4 or $3 respectively, although it has retraced from that like 5 to 6 that it really popped up to. He thinks that it's going to hover around its current price point for a while, but the organic demand for this card, because it's a dragon, and believe me, I've had enough experience doing this over the past few years to know that dragons just have this mysticism about them in this game. From a lot of different angles, dragons are going to be super popular organically. So it bodes very well for the long-term hold on this one. If you had bought it when he tweeted, obviously you can sell it for a quick buck or hold it in the long term and just hope that this is the kind of card that doesn't pop up a lot in precons. Jake, what do you think about the Blast Furnace Hellkite here?
I like dragons as well. I like that line of thinking where it's like, people just like dragons.
Yep.
And it's an artifact dragon. So I like this in honestly like blue-red lists, that kind of thing. I love that because of the artifact offering. You can flash this in and everybody has double strike. You could blow out an opponent just like that. Just kill somebody right there attacking. Flash this in. And I think it's a fun card. I kind of wish that I had grabbed one. I did miss the boat on this guy because it just wasn't really on my radar. Next up, we have Prosperous Innkeeper, 1 green, 1 other for a 1/1 halfling citizen. When Prosperous Innkeeper enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. So it's that important treasure synergy. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life, and then you just passively gain life after that. So you get a little bit of ramp going on here. Foils were called out as a spec on January 2nd, and unfortunately, days after the call, the gaming company dropped about 600 copies on TCG Player. Better news, they've already sold through about half of those copies, and the price has risen from $1.25 when Chris called it out to $2.50 on TCG Direct. The brick of 250 represents a barrier that will take some time to chew through, but that's kind of like in the stock market when you have like a big supply zone that you have to like get through before you're able to break through and see upside on price. And Chris says it's not necessarily a dead spec like he thought it might be at the moment he saw the listing appear, but if it avoids a reprint, Innkeeper could ascend to the $4 to $5 range in foil that he thought it would place somewhere in Q3 of 2023.
Yeah, it's important to note that it's the foils we're talking about here. I mean, look, halfling, citizen, that is a potential creature type for Lord of the Rings. And so the risk on these, it kind of exists around that Lord of the Rings set, right? If you pass that, it probably will dodge a reprint. But halfling, citizen, very popular card, very solid card. I think that, you know, with the foils here, it could potentially get up to that $4 to $5 range, but you really want to dodge that Lord of the Rings set. We'll wrap it up with Eternity Vessel. Eternity Vessel was a more recent card Chris mentioned in a quick Patreon alert on January 24th during the All Will Be One spoiler season. It has synergy with several cards in that set, including the namesake card All Will Be One, where counters go on to things and damage is shot all around the battlefield. He was pretty cautious, he said, when he suggested it because he got a lot of buzz on social media and Reddit. So this isn't so much a sleeper pick like he seems to like to aim at. This one was already getting a lot of buzz, and he did though think that it could get a short pop from $5 to $10, but he also advised not to go after a ton of copies because you did want to try and stay liquid. So maybe 1-2 copies. You don't want to go overboard with this one just because they may be a little stagnant to move. They're still looking like the right call at this point, and unless you're a player needing a copy for whatever reason, you just absolutely need it. His advice, our advice right now, don't speculate on this one, even though it seems like the exact type of thing to want to look at around a proliferate set, around a counters set, you know?
I do like that Chris errs on the side of caution here, because that's what I would do too. Unlike a lot of the cards that we already talked about in this video, this one is higher risk. You have a lot more potential to lose if you go overboard and buy a ton of copies, you know?
Yeah.
If you're buying a bunch of 25-cent cards, it's not like going out and buying a bunch of $10
exactly
cards.
Right. No. These back 5 are specs where, you know, like the boat is passed unless it's explicitly said. Maybe there's still some more room. These have passed on by. It's really those first 5 that you want to look at as possible opportunities. Nothing on this channel's financial advice. Now that our evil plan is complete for this month and you've seen what dirty deeds we're up to, you should go check out our Patreon, because everyone over there got to see this a day early.
Some of the specs that I've done in the past where I've been able to buy cards at like a cheap price, flip them and turn them into like bigger, like more standout collection pieces. Those are some of my favorite moments in MTG. Just like for example, like Kolaghan's Command comes to mind, Walking Ballista comes to mind, buying those for $4 and selling them for $20 a piece. Once you've been in the MTG community long enough, you start to see which cards are good. For us, it's really hard to keep up with that sometimes. But for people like Chris, he's entrenched in that kind of thing, and he is constantly mining the new sets for cards that he thinks are going to be staples or cards that he thinks are going to have potential. And so we hope you found something interesting in this video. We are not saying go out and buy tons of these cards because we think they're going to the moon. We are saying make sure you have these cards on your radar because they are definitely on other people's radar.
Huge thanks to Chris over at Conviction Gaming. Make sure to go check out Chris's Twitter. The link is down in the description. Other than that, we'll see you in the comments. Go down there. Tell us what evil plans we should make for next month.
Nothing ever on this channel in perpetuity of the channel ever at any point will ever become financial advice.
My nose itched. Bye.